Today we delve into a story as horrifying as it is heartbreaking. It happened in March 2019 on Staten Island, New York. This is the story of Jeanine Cammarata, a 37-year-old teacher and mother who vanished without a trace. She had 3 children and was ready to do anything for them. Her first-grade students at Public School 29 adored her, and she held a second job at Dollar Tree just to make ends meet. It was a Saturday night, just past 8 p.m., and she was finishing a shopping trip with her boyfriend, Aaron Suke. They were at Target, picking up various items. Nothing special, just part of everyday life. She dropped Aaron off at his home in New Brighton and told him she was heading to Queens to see her 2 youngest kids. Her white 2017 Chevrolet Cruze drove off into the dusk, headlights cutting through the evening. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Hours passed. No calls, no texts, no sign of her car. On Monday, April 1st, Janine didn't show up at PS 29 in Castleton Corners. School principal Linda Manfredi knew something was wrong. Janine was the reliable type. She would always call if she were running late, but this time she hadn't. Aaron was also worried. He hadn't heard from her since Saturday. By midday, the police had received a missing person report. Investigators began working immediately. Where was her car? Had she made it to Queens? The questions piled up hour after hour. Janine's life was a delicate balancing act, teaching children to read by day, stocking shelves at night, and fighting for her kids. That Saturday, she stepped into the darkness, her heart full of hope. But something, or someone, extinguished that hope. Jeanine Cammarata was petite, just 4 feet 7 inches tall, around 150 centimeters, but her spirit was towering. Her sister, Christine Ross, described her as the glue of the family, always around with a laugh or a helping hand when needed. By 2005, Janine had found her passion, teaching. She got a job with the Department of Education and eventually settled at PS 29 on Staten Island. Her first graders were her pride and joy. She spent hours crafting fun lessons, earning smiles and hugs in return. But teaching didn't cover all the bills, so she worked extra shifts at the Dollar Tree in Graniteville. 2 jobs, endless toil, that was Janine's rhythm. Her true fuel was her children. Janine had 3 children. Her eldest, a teenager now, was from a previous relationship and lived with his father on Long Island. Her 2 youngest, a 3-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter, were from her marriage to Michael Cammarata. That marriage began with hope, but quickly soured. When Janine and Michael first started dating, he showered her with "I love you"s. She fell hard. She imagined a romantic life together, a beautiful symphony of love. They married in April the following year. Like most relationships, there was a honeymoon phase. But after a few years, tensions rose, and they grew apart. By 2017, Janine had had enough and moved out of their shared home into an apartment in New Brighton. It wasn't just a move, it was a stand. She obtained an order of protection against Michael after encounters that left her shaken. She was fighting with everything she had to regain custody of her 2 youngest children, who had stayed with him in Queens. Every penny she saved went toward that dream, a stable home and her family reunited. She had endured heartbreak and chaos, yet she remained strong. The custody battle was her greatest challenge. Court dates loomed. She was determined to win her children back. Christine told investigators that just 2 days before Janine was last seen alive, on the Thursday, she had filed for divorce from Michael and requested full custody of their children. Christine wondered aloud whether Michael had done something to Janine. Was that why no one had heard from her? From her conversations with Christine, it was clear that Janine's situation with Michael was tense, especially due to the custody battle. But Christine's suspicions also pointed toward Aaron, Janine's current boyfriend. Janine hadn't shared much about Aaron with her sister, but when Christine first met him, he came across as odd. Aaron claimed that the last time he saw or spoke to Janine was from Saturday night into Sunday morning. But investigators couldn't shake the feeling that Aaron might be involved. They ran a background check and discovered he had a criminal record, including an arrest for contempt of court after violating a restraining order filed by a former girlfriend years before he met Janine. That was concerning. Detectives called Aaron and asked if he was willing to speak in person. They wanted to verify his alibi and confirm his whereabouts. Aaron described their relationship as happy. He said they met at work and insisted he loved her. He explained that they didn't live together, and the last time he saw her was when she left his place around 9 p.m. Saturday night, supposedly to meet Michael. He said Janine hadn't replied to his calls or texts for days. Then on Monday, April 1st, he received messages from her saying she had a long night and rough 2 days and didn't want to talk to anyone, asking him not to contact her and that she'd reach out eventually. He assumed their relationship was over without a proper breakup and, feeling frustrated, started sending her angry, vulgar texts. Those messages could have been incriminating, but because he volunteered all the information, investigators didn't view him as a suspect, at least not yet. They let him go, knowing they could bring him back if needed. As the investigation deepened, detectives untangled Janine's complicated relationships. Michael's controlling nature and the fresh divorce papers loomed large, while Aaron's strange behavior and criminal past cast shadows of suspicion. Somewhere between those two lay the truth. Did Janine disappear by choice? Or did someone silence her forever? Janine's friend Dominique reached out to numerous news outlets, anything to spread the word. Friends, especially Jessica, voiced deep concern. Their efforts paid off. The story gained media traction, urging the public to share tips and call Crime Stoppers. Janine had been missing since Saturday. It was now Tuesday. The longer she went without contacting anyone, the more investigators feared the worst. Her complete disappearance was a haunting mystery, and the case was beginning to look like more than a simple missing person report. Detectives visited Janine's home, hoping to find clues. The landlord was there and let them in. Inside, nothing seemed out of place. No signs of a struggle. All her clothes and belongings were still there. It didn't look like she had packed or taken anything. They hoped to locate her Chevrolet Cruze. Janine had 2 vehicles registered to her, but interviews revealed that she primarily drove the Cruze, while Michael used the Chrysler Town and Country for the kids. There was no sign of the Cruze. Investigators turned to a key forensic tool unique to sprawling cities like New York, license plate readers. These devices scan plates across the city and log details like time, location, owner, make, and color. The results were revealing. The Chrysler was spotted several times on Sunday and was still active on Tuesday, which made sense since Michael used it daily. But the Chevrolet Cruze was last seen late Saturday night after 9 p.m., just when Janine left Aaron's place for Queens. After that, nothing, until Sunday night, when the Cruze crossed the Verrazano Bridge, returning to Staten Island. That 24-hour gap left investigators questioning what had happened in between. They needed to speak to Michael. But there was a problem. He didn't have a cell phone. In 2019, that was unusual. Who didn't have a phone? They contacted Michael's sister, who revealed he was a postal worker in Manhattan. If they wanted to talk to him, they'd have to go there. With Michael at work and Janine still missing, a new concern arose. Where were the children? 3 days had passed since Janine disappeared. Detectives had to make sure the kids were safe and find out when they last saw their mother. Michael's sister explained that his current girlfriend, Aisha Aja, handled school drop-offs and pickups when Michael was at work. That Tuesday, Aisha had taken the kids to school. Investigators instructed her to hand the children over to county social services afterward. Detective Torres sat down to interview Aisha. Her lack of concern struck him as odd. These were Janine's kids under her care. Shouldn't she be more worried? Aisha explained that Janine had been her kids' teacher at PS18, and she had often volunteered in the classroom. Over time, the two became friends, and Janine occasionally asked Aisha to babysit. Janine even told Aisha that she was no longer with Michael and suggested Aisha and Michael would make a great couple. When Torres asked Aisha about her last interaction with Janine, Aisha said that Michael was upset after receiving the alimony and child custody papers. Other than that, she described their relationship as amicable. Aisha recounted that the day before Janine disappeared, Janine had called her to arrange a meeting with Michael regarding the children. They agreed to meet in Queens to discuss the court papers and for Janine to take the kids for the weekend. According to Aisha, Janine met them in front of their building, got in the car with them, and they drove about 1 block. Janine asked to take the kids, but Michael said it was too late, they were already asleep. Janine then said she would stay there to rest, and Aisha left her and Michael asleep in the car. Aisha claimed that was the last time they saw Janine. Torres didn't buy the story. It was strange that they left Janine asleep alone in the car without checking on her later. He felt something wasn't right, but at that stage, they still had no evidence of a crime, just a missing person case. While Torres was speaking with Aisha, social workers interviewed Janine's children. They confirmed they hadn't seen their mother but were unharmed. The children were returned to Aisha's custody, while Michael was still in Manhattan waiting to speak with investigators. Aisha's story made her and Michael the last known people to see Janine alive. When Michael spoke with investigators, he didn't show much emotion. He sat almost detached while they prepared to dig into his account. Michael told them he had indeed met with Janine on Saturday night, accompanied by Aisha. He claimed they got into an argument, but since it was late, they parted ways in the parking lot. According to him, Janine drove off in her car back to Staten Island, and he hadn't seen or spoken to her since. But the license plate reader contradicted their timeline. Janine's Chevrolet Cruze crossed the Staten Island border not just on Saturday night, but again 24 hours later on Sunday night. When pressed, "Are you sure you're telling the truth?" Michael grew anxious, fidgeted in his seat. Under pressure, he admitted that the argument over custody and divorce papers turned physical. He confessed to putting his hands on her and pushing her. This confession changed everything, especially since it meant Aisha had lied in her previous account. The more Michael spoke, the shakier his story became. After admitting the assault, he fell silent and asked for a lawyer, effectively ending the interview. But his confession gave police enough to arrest him on a misdemeanor assault charge and keep him in custody while they investigated what happened to Janine. In delving into their past, investigators uncovered prior domestic violence reports involving Michael and Janine. Friends had seen the warning signs escalate. Michael's controlling behavior was suffocating, changing her Facebook passwords, attempting to hack her email, even following her home from work in a car with the headlights off. Jessica, one of Janine's friends, once confronted her, asking if she was okay, if something was wrong. Janine brushed it off. "No, he's never hit me." But her friends couldn't be around all the time, and Janine may have kept darker secrets to herself. Michael quickly became the prime suspect. In fact, Janine's cousin Booba said she had been texting with someone pretending to be Janine, someone she believed was actually Michael Cammarata. He was now the main suspect. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage from the apartment building. The video was clear, no question who was involved or when the events happened. The footage showed Janine arriving in her white Chevrolet Cruze. Michael and Aisha got in, and the car drove down the street, then stopped for about 20 minutes. Michael exited, walked to the driver's side, then returned to the car and drove it back to the apartment. This alone disproved Aisha's claim that Janine stayed behind to nap in the car. The footage tracked Michael through the courtyard, his face unmistakable. Later, he returned with a shopping cart and a large black trash bag. He moved something heavy from Janine's white Cruze into the cart. Investigators' stomachs turned. They knew it was likely Janine in that bag. Aisha appeared holding the door open, helping Michael push the cart inside. The next morning, cameras caught them leaving with the same bag, now accompanied by a blue storage bin. It was clear they had done something to Janine. Aisha was brought in again. She remained eerily calm, sticking to the same story she told the day before. Then investigators confronted her with still images from the surveillance footage, her and Michael moving the trash bag in the shopping cart. There were 3 people in that car. When it came back, only 2 got out, you and him. You know what happened. Cornered, Aisha's story changed, and the truth began to unravel. Faced with a mountain of video evidence, Aisha's calm cracked. Her story shifted significantly. She claimed that chaos erupted while they were in the car. Janine and Michael began yelling at each other. Aisha said Janine hit Michael first, and he hit her back. According to Aisha, Janine lost consciousness. When pressed about what happened next, Aisha described how Michael moved Janine to the passenger seat, slid into the driver's seat, and drove off. Later, he came back with a cart and bags. Aisha admitted helping him stuff Janine's body into one of them. They returned to the apartment, but Aisha claimed Janine moved, halfway inside the bag, awake and alert, talking. The argument reignited. Janine screamed, pulled her hair, and attacked everything. Aisha said her loud screaming made Michael nervous. He didn't want the neighbors to hear, so he punched her, knocking her out again. Aisha insisted Janine was still breathing at that point. But when she woke up later, Janine was gone from the apartment, and Michael had already placed her in a bag. When asked, "Where is Janine now?" Aisha claimed she didn't know. Aisha was arrested and charged with complicity in the crime. This was the moment the case cracked wide open, transforming the missing person case into something far darker. It was Thursday, April 4, 2019, 5 days after Janine's white Chevrolet Cruze vanished. The phone rang at the police station. A tip from Crime Stoppers pointed them to a storage unit rented by Michael on Staten Island, a quiet corner of town about 4.5 miles, around 7.2 kilometers, from Janine's apartment in New Brighton. Rows of green doors under floodlights, the kind of place you'd store old furniture, not secrets. The team obtained a search warrant for the unit registered in Michael's name. They arrived, broke the lock, and opened the gate. Inside was a typical storage unit, boxes, personal belongings. But a large black trash bag drew their attention. Officers opened it. The scene was horrific. Human remains burned beyond recognition. The air was heavy, despite air fresheners, a desperate cover-up attempt that failed. That morning, NYPD officers found human remains on the southern tip of Staten Island on Arden Avenue. The body was charred and unrecognizable. The New York City Chief Medical Examiner was conducting an autopsy to determine the identity and cause of death. The investigation at the storage facility continued. This led them to the missing 37-year-old mother, Jeanine Cammarata. The entire container was taken to the medical examiner. The next day, the autopsy confirmed cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head and asphyxiation. Dental records positively identified Jeanine Cammarata. It was now official. She had been murdered. The Staten Island teacher, the mother who fought for her children, was gone, stuffed into a bag, burned, and discarded like trash. With Janine's discovery, investigators now had the task of proving, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Michael killed her and disposed of her body. The storage unit, rented in his name, was damning evidence. but they needed more. They traced when Michael had visited the unit and reviewed surveillance footage. It showed a Chrysler Town and Country van arriving. Janine's kids and Aisha exited. Michael and Aisha carried the plastic bag containing Janine's body. Then Michael dragged the bin into the storage unit. The footage confirmed Janine's horrific fate and the chilling indifference of those responsible. Though Aisha claimed Michael struck Janine, the autopsy revealed blunt force trauma to the back of her head. Michael was in the front passenger seat, while Janine sat in the back, making it likely that Aisha, who was also in the back seat, delivered the blow. Evidence also showed Aisha helped Michael every step of the way. What began as an assault charge now escalated. Both were now facing second-degree murder charges. Although they pleaded not guilty, prosecutors pointed to motive. Michael's lawyer argued that alimony and custody payments would drain finances Aisha depended on, casting her as having the most to gain from Janine's death. Fast forward to September 8, 2021. The New York State Supreme Court in St. George, Staten Island, began Michael Cammarata's trial, a 5-week marathon revealing the March 2019 nightmare. Prosecutors Adam Silverlight and Timothy Richard were ready with strong evidence. Surveillance footage, GPS tracking from the van, the storage unit rental, everything told a clear story. This was no accident. Michael planned it. He killed Janine to stop her custody efforts and burned her to hide the truth. After keeping her body overnight in their home, Michael and Aisha drove to South Jersey and burned the body, said prosecutors. Defense attorney Mario Gallucci took an unexpected turn. He didn't deny that Michael transported the body, but claimed Aisha was the killer. With 6 kids, she feared losing Michael's support if Janine won in court. On October 8, 2021, after hours of deliberation, the jury delivered a guilty verdict on all charges: murder, concealment, evidence tampering, everything. Michael stood with a blank expression. Janine's sister, Christine, stifled a sob. On November 17, Judge Mario Mattei sentenced him to 23 years to life in prison. No mercy for such a heinous act, the judge said. Michael muttered a hollow apology. "I'm sorry. This is terrible. I'm sorry for everything. I think I'm sorry for Jack, for Catherine, for Joy, for Christine's children. Because they'll never know Janine the way I did." Meanwhile, Aisha Aja accepted a plea deal, admitting guilt to first-degree manslaughter. The judge sentenced her to 7 to 9 years in prison, something Janine's friends and family felt was far too lenient. She deserved the same punishment as Michael, if not more. And so ends the story of Jeanine Cammarata, a mother who fought for her children, only to be betrayed by those closest to her, simply because she sought justice. Her dreams were stuffed into a plastic bag and burned in a desperate attempt to hide the truth. But the truth cannot be burned. And justice, no matter how late, never dies. Broken heart, do you think Aisha received the punishment she deserved? And is 23 years in prison enough for Michael? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice is what keeps Janine's memory alive.